if Israel invades Gaza, definitely Hezbollah at least is going to intervene. And if Hezbollah intervenes, the United States will intervene. And if the United States intervene, then we are talking about regional war. Iran will also intervene. Syria will also intervene. So who benefits from this?
All eyes on Israel, and all of the Western media focused on what happens next in the Gaza Strip. But of course, another country that has been under attack over the past 10 days is Syria by the Israelis attacking the airports in Aleppo and Damascus. But Western media is, of course, silent on that story. But we are not, and we are bringing in Kevork Almassian, Syrian journalist. Kevork, good to see you. What can you tell us over the past few hours has been happening in Syria with these continued attacks on Syrian civilian infrastructure?
I believe the security situation is deteriorating in the region after the decision of Israel to wage a ground offensive against the Gaza Strip. The declared goal, according to Israeli officials, is to occupy the Gaza Strip and push the 2 million Palestinians to the Sinai region so that they would become refugees indefinitely, just like the 500,000 Palestinian refugees in Syria, 500,000 Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, and 2 million Palestinian refugees in Jordan, and the rest are spread all around the world. Those people never had the chance to go back to their countries after they were dispelled. So the Syrian side is definitely involved in this conflict with Israel, and they are trying to, what is called in the military strategy in Syria, is to increase the pace of the retaliation depending on what the Israelis are planning in the Gaza Strip. When Antony Blinken visited the region, and he visited to Israel, also to Jordan, to Saudi Arabia, this has also preceded with a phone call for the first time between the president of Iran and with his counterpart, King of Saudi Arabia. And it seems that there is a consensus, even among the people, even among the countries who want to normalize relations with Israel, that the occupation of the Gaza Strip and expelling 2 million Palestinians to the Sinai region is a red line. And accordingly, it seems that Syria wants to join the coalition of countries, especially Iran, Hezbollah, which is a very strong actor here, and the rest of the militant groups in the Gaza Strip, that if the Israelis want to wage this ground offensive, they will also retaliate. And this also explains Biden's warning against to Israel that they shouldn't occupy the Gaza Strip, because the messages and the signals they have received from the region is that the regional countries and even the countries who are allies with the United States and want to normalize relations with Israel are against this ground operation of Israel in the Gaza Strip. Therefore, yesterday we have seen this report from the Israeli side that say they want to halt or postpone the operation for 1 week because of the bad weather. The truth of the matter is that they received the information or the intelligence information from the region that there is a preparation for escalation against Israel from multi fronts. And let's remember that the Hezbollah side, they are not like Hamas. Hezbollah has over 100,000 soldiers, and they have gained lots of experience in Syria when they fought against ISIS and Nusra. Those are very vicious groups, right? And they have anti-tank missiles, they have air defense systems, and they even have anti-ship cruise missiles. Hezbollah is a regular army, and if they intervene in this war, they will neutralize the air bases of Israel. And that's why the Americans have sent 2 aircraft carriers to the Mediterranean, because Hezbollah and Syria, they're capable of neutralizing the air bases if Israel invades the Gaza Strip. So Israel also at this same time is sending signals to Syria that if you intervene, I'm going also to bomb Syria. And what happened is, in the past 10 days, they have bombed twice the Aleppo International Airport, which is used for civilian purposes, and also the Damascus International Airport, which is also used for civilian purposes. And the timing was very interesting, because Israel bombed the airport just 1 day before the landing of the foreign minister of Iran to Syria. And therefore, the foreign minister of Iran had to go to Beirut, and from Beirut come with a car to Damascus, because Iran is now coordinating with the regional governments. How could they respond to the Israeli potential attack on the Gaza Strip? Now they postponed it. Let's see if they are going to follow the schedule. But if, I would say, Israel invades Gaza and they want to kick out the Palestinians to Egypt, this is definitely going to escalate, and definitely Hezbollah at least is going to intervene. And if Hezbollah intervenes, the United States will intervene. And if the United States intervene, then we are talking about regional war. Iran will also intervene, Syria will also intervene. So who benefits from this? We have to ask this question.
Right. Follow the money, right? Who benefits from this? The United States using, of course, Israel as an aircraft carrier. As Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just said, this is one of the reasons why we support Israel, is because, in his words, Israel is basically an aircraft carrier for the United States in this region, of course. I want to bring up, when you talked about the refugee question, and that was brought up over the past 48 hours by the ex-foreign minister for Israel. When asked what should happen to the Palestinians, he said they should be pushed out of Gaza, they should be funneled into Egypt through the Rafah border crossing, and set up a massive tent city in the desert. Get out of Gaza. And he held up Syria as an example of the success of a tent city for refugees. And he said, just like Syria and the Syrian refugees, this is what should happen to the Palestinians. Again, this is the ex-foreign minister of Israel. So can you talk about the great success of the Syrian refugees living in tents, sleeping on floors, and praying and hoping to actually get a sliver of a mattress to sleep on and so they don't freeze to death? I mean, it sounds like a great success.
Clayton, as much as I personally try to be objective and not to use these words, but it's very psychopathic of him to give the example of the Syrian refugees as if it's a successful story. There are millions, 5 million Syrian refugees. Most of them are living in tents under dire conditions during the winter times. Every year, there are babies dying, there are mothers dying because there is no heating and there is no basic necessities for these people. The idea of encouraging the people to become a refugee at the first place was for political reasons. They wanted to weaponize the refugees against the Assad regime so that they say the people are fleeing from the Assad regime and the Assad regime lost its legitimacy. This was the purpose of it. But they thought that this issue will be resolved very quickly in a few months and these people can go back. But it has become 12 years of war right now. So these people have become permanently refugees. And now, since the powers who weaponized refugees against Syria lost their interest with the refugees, now they're not even funding these refugees anymore. And these refugees, even if they want to go back to Syria, they are these NGOs that are all, of course, funded by the usual suspects in the NED, USAID, George Soros organizations. They are scaremongering the people and telling them that if you go to Syria, the Assad regime will murder you, so you should stay a refugee. They have created a new identity called the refugee. Like, I'm a refugee, I'm proud. There is even an Olympic team for the refugees right now. So they're creating an identity of people to become a refugee. Yes, of course, there is a Syrian woman, she's a swimmer. She participated in the Olympics in the refugee team and not in her Syrian national team. This is becoming a trend in the region, right? So when Ayalon says he wants to copy the example of Syrian refugees, which means these people also will become refugees indefinitely. And remember, the refugees after the Nakba, after 1948 expulsion of the Palestinians from their homelands, they have remained refugees up until this moment, and this is going to be the case in Egypt. And the geography of Egypt is very difficult. It's a deserty environment. It's very warm and it lacks water. So they're going to send all these 2 million people there in a very dire situation and build them there, these so-called cities, and keep them there. So this is the solution of Israel. It's ethnic cleansing of the people from the Gaza Strip. Regardless of what is your opinion about Hamas, I've been personally attacking Hamas for 10 years now. But the people there, the civilians, these 2 million civilians have nothing to do with Hamas. And these people, they deserve to live in their towns, in their farms, and in their birthplace, right? And not to be expelled to somewhere else and then bring settlers from all around the world and settle them in these areas. And there is something very important here, Clayton. Israel uses this excuse all the time to expand. They say security concerns. They occupy the Golan Heights, right? And they say, I have to create a buffer zone with Syria, so they occupy the Golan Heights. They have to create a buffer zone with the Gaza Strip, so they occupy the surroundings of Gaza, and they put military installations there. If the Palestinians been expelled to Sinai, and in a generation, if these kids who are growing up on the stories of the horror that they live now, and in 10 years, 20 years, and they say, I want to go back to my home, I want to go back to Gaza. And if they shoot one bullet on Israel from the Sinai, this time on Israel would say, now I have to expand in the Sinai because there is a security danger coming from there. And remember, in 1967, Israel occupied the Sinai completely. So if they occupied it once, they would occupy it for the second time. But this time, through this slow, gradual occupation of the territories, quoting security concerns and expanding in the region. So in my opinion, Israel is the only country in the Middle East which is expanding since 1948. and nobody is even saying anything about it. Israel doesn't adhere to the international law, which has drawn where is the border of Israel, right? They don't follow that international law, and they just expand even on Palestinian territories in West Bank by building the settlements. And as Chomsky once said, it has become like a chicken nuggets, like small nuggets everywhere. And between each of these nuggets, there are checkpoints of the Israeli occupation army. And all these settlements are heavily protected by armed militias from the settlers, and also from the IDF.
Yeah, and of course, Egypt now moving to join BRICS. Once they have that BRICS control of the Suez Canal, that would not be something that the United States would want. And so pushing into Sinai to give back control to Western authorities of that major waterway passage would be ideal for Western powers and these globalists as well. Kevork, I know you've got to run and to do some work there. Thank you for your continued amazing journalism on this. We really appreciate it. Thank you for keeping us abreast of what's happening in Syria, lest we forget what has actually been happening while the people there have been bombed over the past few days as well, and the Western press focusing on exclusively on what's happening in Israel. Thank you so much, Kevork. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Clayton.